Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Taboo. We are here every Thursday, pretty much, if we feel like it, from 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time till about 4 for 60 minutes of authoritative comics commentary from a comics anthropologist and myself, the head comics reviewer at Bleeding Cool. And we have quite a list to get to, Stanford. Quite a lot going on today. Where would you like to begin? And the answer is not Children of the Atom because, yes, I did not finish it, and no, I will not be shamed for it.
Well, it's not about shame. It's about accountability.
I grew up in the United States, so I don't really know much about that, so...
Well, I'll just start in on that and just say really quickly, yeah, ain't missed nothing.
Yeah, they're still at the party, right? The party that ended like 3 weeks ago?
Well, yeah, she goes. Yeah, Gimmick goes to the party. She's now a mutant, and now she's with. And now she's kind of hooking up with Lady Cyclops at the end, kinda, and then she goes off to be with the mutant. So we don't know what that means, and really, they haven't done enough with these characters to make me care.
Pass. All right.
Yeah.
On to actual books that we've done. What do we actually get into?
Well, let's stay in the X-verse.
Must we?
Yeah. Let's give a quick talk about X-Men #2, which I think is actually one of the prettiest books.
It's a good-looking book.
Out, but I think and. You know what? I'm not going to say that the writing is bad. It's okay. The writing's solid.
Yeah.
But it's not. I wouldn't say it's my top book. It's actually a pleasant read, which is something that I miss in an X-Men book. I miss when it had just very consistent, very pleasing reads where you just kind of entered the world. Mm-hmm. You did your stuff there, and then you left. X-Men from month to month isn't always. It's not necessarily the best book every month, but it used to be the most consistent book, and that's what I miss. And that's one thing I do like about the first and second issue of this of the X-Men book is that it's given me some consistency.
I can see that. This has indeed been consistent, but it does so in a way that I've always called what's TV good. So let's say, for instance, you're sitting on the couch. You got nothing going on. You got some time to kill. You're flipping through the channels. You see something. Okay, I can watch this. It's good enough to watch for free if you don't have anything else to do. I would characterize this book as that. It's perfectly fine. It's perfectly passable. But if there was literally anything that I had that was more important to do, I would jump to it. And if there was anything else to consume that I had that was possibly better than this, I would jump to it. Because while this is good, it's not great. And I'm trying to focus myself on greatness.
Well, okay, I guess we'll have to say I liked it a little more than you did. For me, one of the high points in this book is that we're actually seeing something being done with Sunfire. Sunfire is one of those characters that's been around forever, but so little gets done with him.
True.
That when you actually have a little bit of characterization, it seems to go a long way with the character. I enjoyed that. I do enjoy this emphasis on figuring out how and this idea around mutant tech, where mutants combine their abilities to be greater than the sum of their parts.
Yes,
I think that's great. I love having Sync there for it. Mm-hmm. I hate to say it, a lot of people aren't going to like me for this. Given what Sync brings to it, I kind of don't need to see Rogue in this book.
That's also fair.
I think that Rogue and Sync, are very redundant as far as characters. It would have been nice to see someone like Armor there, because what Rogue brings to the team is really that she's a brick, right? She's
a tank.
But bring in Armor. I've always really liked Armor because there's a sense of whimsy around the fact that she actually takes her force field and does something with it other than just have it be a bubble, right?
Oh yeah, I totally get that. But I mean, this is a fan-elected X-Men. These are chosen by the people, and if there's one thing the last, since the 90s and definitely since the animated series has taught us, people like to see Rogue. And That is unlikely to change anytime soon.
That is true.
So if you got to have a tank, I'm fine with a flying tank. A flying tank is enjoyable. I got no real beef with that. My beef would be more with the real throwaway and ultimately frivolous nature of the antagonism here. That the Earth is under attack because it seems like it would be interesting and people want to bet on it. That's not a thing. That's like, really capricious and really callow. And while I'll admit I do live in a rather capricious and callow universe, it doesn't necessarily seem to carry forth to me as the most motivating or defining antagonist for a hero to face.
I see where you're coming from. I completely see where you're coming from. But in some ways, that's kind of... There's a long history of those types of villains for the X-Men, right? The X-Men, I mean, part of what makes X-Men fun is really in the characterization. And, especially when it first came out, or the new X-Men first came out under Claremont, where it's as much of a soap opera as it is an adventure. Mm-hmm. And they do seem to be tapping that a little bit here.
I mean, I get that and I see that, but just because something was done doesn't mean it was done and it was the right thing to do, or that it's going to be good this time or then. I was always raised and taught professionally that heroes are defined by their antagonists. Heroes are defined by what they oppose. And if what you oppose is shallow and unimportant, then what you stand for may not be that important either.
Okay. I hear you. I hear you. But, we've got more of the X-Verse to cover. We've got
Let's get into it.
We've got X-Force 22.
X-Force 22. I do remember that one. Yeah, that was where Beast had that gag, "You're the field team. You're in a field." And I was like, wow, that joke really falls flat.
Yeah, it does.
I was embarrassed and I tell dad jokes like a lot. And I was embarrassed. I was like, sir, this is an Arby's.
Yeah. I mean, I've been, this week was interesting because there are a couple of books that I read where I've been away from them, and so I was just kind of dropping back in and seeing what it looks like with kind of fresh eyes.
Yep.
And X-Force is, I mean, I think X-Force is kind of is one of those. It's the value of X-Force is in its consistency. But it's not knocking my socks off with the story or the antagonist.
Yes, and that's a challenge because I mean X-Force from its roots even to the polybag days, X-Force has been about spectacle. It's been about shock and awe. It's like when you really need to hit somebody really hard with mutants, you're supposed to hit them with X-Force, and they're standing around, they're talking, and there's bad dad jokes, and I'm like, This is not the ticket I'm trying to buy. It's not. That's not what X-Force is about. If I want that, yeah. I have New Mutants for that with Bobby DaCosta. He's funny, I don't. and moreover, with Hank McCoy as the supposed spy master, I really think he's underqualified for the job, despite his intellect. I believe he doesn't have the experience or the toughness, given the multiple things that he's already screwed up doing it. Yeah. Ironically, they had Dark Beast, what they call the Age of Apocalypse Beast, running around for a while. And he, I think, would have done the job really well. I think it would have been very good at it, even with this Beast in a support capacity. But I'm not really sure continuity-wise where that person is or if that person still exists. It's hard to remember how things work.
Yeah, but I'm also surprised that they don't have like, just have a book that focuses on this X-Men science team. And have Beast be on that with Dr. Nemesis. I mean, there could be some really fun adventures to have there, right?
Like a mutant Fantastic Four.
Exactly.
Ooh, I'm interested in that.
Yeah. And so, but alas, they screwed the pooch on that one. Poor pooch.
Alas, indeed, with Dr. Nemesis and his mushroom hair.
Yes. But let's move to another corner of the Marvel universe. What did you think of Captain Marvel number 39?
Okay. First of all, I love her relationship with her quote unquote sister, Lori L. I think that's fantastic. I love the idea that she's this in love with Jim Rhodes, even though I don't really understand it. I don't really see what either of them sees in each other based on the relationship that I've got. It's very bland. I think it's a gorgeously done book. I think, but Yeah, to go in and fight what they fought in the way that they fought, I was like, yeah, it's kind of not super necessary. And truthfully, Jim Rhodes was way out of his depth and should not have been there at all. He was completely not qualified to do anything useful there, and that showed very quickly in the narrative. So,
Right.
I just felt I appreciate the dialogue. I appreciate the character work. I don't believe the plot or the threats in mind are doing any significant service to the character or the franchise.
I felt like this was literally just a placeholder episode. It's like,
Hmm.
the writer and the artist got behind. We bring in the B team. Their job is to put up just a solid placeholder episode so everybody can get caught up. The issues can come out on time, and everybody gets their bonuses at the end of the year. That was how I felt about it. You know, I mean, I'm like you. I kind of like the idea of Captain Marvel and Rhodey, but the reality is two characters with no chemistry.
Zero chemistry. And given how much was put into building up this Ove character, the son of the Enchantress that was supposed to be this future threat, and how he's brought back and what happened to him, I'm like, we just kind of walked away from that very quickly at the end of the last thing with a very, I felt, incomplete conclusion. So, right now it's just like do going on about our business, forgetting all about that stuff, yada yada yada. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I mean, if that's what you want to do. Literally the only thing I can think of in common that Carol and Rhodes have is that they're in the military. They're both
Yep.
pilots. So, I mean, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's about it. I mean, now there's another book. There's another Marvel book that I have a character I've long loved, but I've fallen out of reading them for a while. Is Daredevil 33.
Oh, there's a lot of wacky things going on in Daredevil. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. So Daredevil went to jail because he did something really horrible. But in jail, he is able to keep his mask on, able to keep his identity secret. And okay, here's where it's going to start to get weird. Okay, so he has a twin brother that was dreamed into existence accidentally. That doesn't really exist and knows he doesn't really exist and doesn't care because he's kind of like the opposite of Matt in every way. He's kind of a selfish jerk. He can see too, so he's out pretending to be Matt, pretending to be a lawyer while Daredevil's in jail, and Elektra has taken on the quote-unquote mantle of Daredevil to try to protect Hell's Kitchen. And none of those things are going well. None of those things are going anywhere near the way anybody would want them to. And it's just
But
a steamy hot mess.
it is. It's kind of it was actually kind of a fun read though.
Yeah.
Even as somebody who's kind of coming at it after being away for a while. But I got to take issue with one thing.
What's that?
If anything, it should be Matt taking up Elektra's mantle, not Elektra taking up Matt's mantle. I'm
You
sorry.
think he'd look good in a little unitard? You think he'd be good?
All I'm saying is, when you take over a mantle, it should be a step up.
Oh, shots fired. Oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that from the doctor. Okay.
I'm just saying.
Shots
And I love me some
fired.
Daredevil. I love me some Elektra, but there's something about Elektra stepping into Daredevil's costume that seems like a demotion.
Wow, well. I mean, when you look at it as a woman, putting on the clothes of a man, still not getting the same respect. I got to say, there was a couple issues back where she did some things as Daredevil, and she was like, "You're letting them know." Somebody was like, "You're letting them know who you are." She was like, "What have I got to hide? I'm Elektra. Who am I hiding from?"
Yeah, exactly.
So it does support your point here, but and I had forgotten that. I'd forgotten that line until you just said that. And I was like, oh, you know what? She really is kind of slumming it. Literally, Hell's Kitchen is a slum. Literally. So, I mean, you're making some good points. But Chip Zdarsky he's a writer who knows how to entertain. He can get a lot of things right. I think his plots meander a lot, and I think he's really could use a tighter editorial rein in that regard. But I mean, yeah, you can walk into this book. Kingpin's going to be entertaining. He's going to get some stuff off. You got this mobster Izzy Libris, who's, she's okay. She's got some depth to her or whatever, but it's a lot of good pieces. It's like having a lot of pieces from a lot of different Lego sets, but they don't necessarily go together.
Yeah, but you know what? I gotta say, one thing one thing I did like about this book was they had a nice little previously section at the beginning.
Yep.
So you could come in and you could assess and understand that you were in the middle of a dumpster fire, and then you knew what was going on. And that actually, and I think that I'll be honest, that allowed me to enjoy it.
I'm a big fan of recap pages. Big fan.
Yeah.
Big fan.
I mean, because I also feel like if as a writer you can't succinctly recap what's happened, then you're really not a writer.
I'm not going to say it, but you did. So it's funny you mention that because I noticed how many indie books that I read this week that didn't have a recap. Like I read By the Horns, which it took me like 10 pages to get into this. Like, oh, I remember now. She hates unicorns because unicorns killed her family. Oh, so that's what's happening. And I was like 10 pages in before I remembered that. And that's because I read the previous books.
Right.
People who were walking in the school like, what the hell is happening here?
Yep, and there is one, when we get to it, there is one book that did not have a recap that I actually, and has a pretty complicated story that didn't need the recap, and that's also a sign of a great writer.
It is.
But there are a few writers that are that great. But we'll talk about that individual later. Okay.
Foreshadowing, I love it.
Let's finish out Marvel with FF Life Story number 3.
Okay, did not see that coming. Did not see them doing that. I was like, dude, oh no.
Yeah, I was like, okay.
That's a surprise.
And you know what else got me was the way they did the 80s.
What do you mean?
Like, I really felt, they managed to catch just a few of the subtle, they didn't make it full out 80s fashion, but they captured enough little bits of 80s fashion that I was like, yeah, I'm in the 80s now. Okay. I like it when a book manages to do that because it rarely works if you go too full tilt.
Wonder Woman 84.
Pardon?
Nothing. Carry
on. Because I think what happens is like you kind of lose your connections. At a certain point, a lot of us didn't live in the 80s, right? So, so you want to have enough in there. But I kind of liked it. I particularly love the portrayal of Tony Stark. Like that really
You're
felt
my
like
ride.
Yeah. But he felt like the 80s version of Tony Stark.
Yes, he
because
did.
the
Yes,
80s version of Tony Stark is very different than our version of Tony Stark today.
Yeah.
Anybody who's had the opportunity to do the archival research, to read stuff that's that old, you got a different Tony Stark altogether. I mean, he looks more like a
Howard Stark.
He looks more like a Magnum PI ripoff.
Oh yeah, well Magnum PI was very clearly. I mean, with the mustache, that was very emblematic of people in the 80s. They were the white guy with the mustache was a big thing. Burt Reynolds started all that off.
Yeah, So yeah, I mean, it was. I thought it was an interesting book to step into, and I'm kind of intrigued by this kind of take on the Fantastic Four where they're aging in real time. It's like these references, Spider, Human Torch talking to Spider-Man about, oh my gosh, we're in our 40s now.
Spidey's response was pretty entertaining there.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that there's a place for that. But it also changes. You also start to see how much it changes the storytelling when you have time go by.
Yes.
Right. This whole idea that Sue Storm has been you know what, forget you, Reed. I'm gonna go hang out with a Submariner.
She's getting the fish sticks.
Yep. He does much better what you should be able to do better given your power set.
He was taking good care of it.
Yep. And
except he did kind of he did really make a jerk move near the end there, and you know what, you messed it all up, player.
Yep.
I was like, oh snap! Don't say that to the lady.
But also little things though, like Johnny Storm being the cool uncle who bails his kid out of jail. I was like, okay,
On brand.
yep. I thought it was I didn't want to like this. I'll be honest. I had no desire to like this, and I liked it.
Well, I didn't. Well, let me correct it. I appreciate it. I appreciate the idea of what they were trying to accomplish in the same way that I appreciate the idea of what they were trying to accomplish with other history of DC Universe. But from a practical standpoint, I don't care because one, this doesn't. This story in and of itself has not achieved anything truly great or said anything truly insightful that made me say, "Oh wow," even with the big surprise that happens in this issue, I don't believe it, It
Yeah.
doesn't. It literally, if you look at the number, it literally doesn't add up. So I was very. I was like, all right. I mean, I get this. This is fine. And if you're doing some Superman Birthright style thing where you're just trying to do a retelling and set it in a certain way and whatever, it's fine enough. But I mean, I'm not real passionate about the Fantastic Four, and
Yeah.
I don't really care. And Reed ruining his life while trying to be right is, it's not necessarily a story note that really I want to go along with. Because I was like, oh no, that's not. He's totally checked out. That's not cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is. Yeah. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you on that. But like I said, I enjoyed this. You know what? I mean, I felt like this is like it kind of made me think about. Actually, it made me think about X-Men Legends. Right?
Oh
Like why
God.
does this work and why
Oh,
does
why are you
X-Men
doing
Legends not
that?
work?
Oh my God. You had to bring that book up. It's like Candyman. What are you doing?
X-Men Legends, X-Men Legends,
Oh my
X-Men
God.
Legends.
Why? Why are you like this?
But I mean, but it's interesting that like this Fantastic Four works, X-Men Legends isn't working,
Right.
right? Even though I would argue that X-Men Legends probably has some better people working on it. And I
That's
think
fair.
that and I think that this is where you start to see how important an editor is. How important that big sky editorial vision is, and what it means when that kind of steps in.
Well,
When that steps in to frame something a little bit better. Like one of the problems with X-Men Legends is just telling stories that fit into other stories that have long gone by, but it's not really doing an adequate job of summarizing why that story matters and what story it fits into. It
yeah.
demands a lot. It demands a lot more of the readers than Fantastic Four life story
It
does.
does that, and I believe that your editorial point is fair, but I also believe that's also an element of conception. That the core idea of we're going to start the X-Men in the '60s and tell them their story in real time, like 24, but in comics, is different than we're going to slide in between four stories that you probably forgot from the 1990s and retell them with the original teams.
Right.
That's apples and oranges. And honestly, it's not the freshest or ripest of fruit either way, but at least one of them, lives by its own rules and is in and of itself a thing. Whereas this X-Men Legends is a thing that refers to a thing, which is not the same thing.
Right. That's true. I thought that was the last Marvel title we have. We have one more.
Uno mas. What do we got?
Defenders number one.
Yeah. I'm not really sure why Doctor Strange is playing Pokemon. I was trying to figure it out while I was reading. I was like, oh wow, you're just totally full out just gonna do that. Okay, I guess. Sure. Especially with the antagonist so vaguely defined thus far, and the concepts herein just kind of wishy-washy. I love the concept of the Defenders. I love the concept of a team that's thrown together, does not want to be together, but has to be together for different reasons. At one point, they couldn't get like more than a mile from each other, which I thought was hilarious, because Hulk kept trying to jump away from him and then teleporting right back, which was super funny to me. But I don't know. I didn't really get much out of it. I didn't really have much of a feeling for it. It would definitely be a meh read for me, so I don't know.
Okay. I thought it was kind of interesting, and that's what got me. It was interesting in that I thought the storytelling was actually pretty solid in terms of them telling us about each character that's coming in. I thought that this whole idea of using tarot cards to pick your team. I thought, oh, that's kind of
It's
that's kind of
Pokemon.
interesting.
It's literally
Yeah,
Pokemon.
it is. I thought that was interesting. But I felt like what I've experienced so far is a lot of interesting framing. But I still am trying to figure out where we're going.
Yep. Totally fair.
So if you love learning about characters, this is a great first issue. If you want to know where you're going, wait till the second issue.
So if you can't access Wikipedia, I understand that. Or if you're actually trying to read a comic book. Got it. Okay. What's next?
Well, let's go to the DC universe.
If we must.
Yeah, let's. I'm putting these comics together so that we can shorten the pain.
All right.
Justice League 65 and 66.
I guess. I mean, Naomi's parents are hiding in the bottom of the Justice League building with John Constantine, and there's some spy thing happening with Green Arrow and Black Canary, and I mean, I don't know.
Lois
it's a lot.
Lane's brother. We've now met Lois Lane's brother. That's kind of a reveal, and we know that Lois Lane's brother is the Demon Rose, which answers the question of the title for Checkmate that Checkmate never bothered to go into, but
Every part of what you're saying is boring to me. Every part of it, because I remember Lois's sister, who was kind of a firecracker, and she was kind of a pepper, and I was like, okay, cool. But Sam Lane's got another kid that we haven't seen, who's now apparently Demon Rose or whatever. I mean, okay, here's my thing. If writers are so concerned about creating original things that they are making a sibling for Lois Lane for the Justice League to fight, we really, really need to re-examine some of these things. We may be shooting ourselves in the foot with some of these corporate practices, because this.
Well, yeah. I mean, we have to
not.
question. I think this is the point where people have too much time on their hands worrying about the things that don't need to be worried about. There's a deep enough bench in the DC that there's somebody else who can do that without having to create a new character and upend continuity.
Yeah. It's not really connecting, and I don't believe it can connect based on the fact that, like I said, if you're limited to only making things that are derivatives of other things, then you're going to have the same sort of what they call inbreeding problem that royal lions in Europe had, when it's like, oh, your nose looks like that now. That's weird. Okay, okay, I guess.
You raise a legit point. What got me is we finally have some powerful aliens dropping by, and where is arguably their most powerful character? I'm looking at you, Black Adam. Oh yeah, he left in issue 64 to just go on a walkabout. It's
To be fair, he's very capricious. To be fair.
But he's actually the one character that can get there.
I mean, you're not wrong. But he's also well known for not giving a crap until he feels like giving a crap.
Well, that is true, and they've got his character down pat. Yeah, so I just feel like Justice League has lost its way, and I don't think it really stands a chance of finding it anytime soon.
When you say that, it's interesting because both Justice League and Avengers are meant to be the central showcase for the most powerful, most spectacular characters in their respective universes. And both of them, I mean, you've got some spectacle in the Avengers, but it's messy. It's messy and nonsensical. Whereas here, you lack spectacle, you lack a lot of real, grandeur, even, because these are literally characters of myth. In the Wonder Woman book, they actually did it better, where one of the Norse heroes shows up and sees an alternate Justice League that's mostly women, but they're the same powers and they operate the same way. He's like, "Oh my, these are truly the gods of Earth! Holy crap!"
Right.
Because this is some mythic level power here, and it just feels like it's just like just kind of driving around the parking lot.
Yeah. Yep. I'm with you on that. So, yeah.
Comic books this week. Dr. Stanford Carpenter, Hannibal Taboo, an hour of scintillating comics commentary. We are in the middle of a whole bunch of stuff. What's next?
Let's do Robin #4, the book that I never wanted to like that I kind of do.
Is this like 3 weeks ago? What are you digging up into the crates for? What are you doing, man?
You know what? I think this is not 3 weeks ago. This was last week.
It just seems like it was so long ago. All right, you mean with like Hot Zaddy Ra's al Ghul that everybody was posting about?
Yeah. You know what? I don't want. I'm going to be honest. I don't want to like this Robin book, but I'm kind of enjoying it. I think the writing is kind of. I think they've managed to do some witty writing around a character that I don't inherently like all that much. It's and the concept is not a concept that that is designed to really pull me, which is, oh, we're trapped on an island and they kill us and we come back to life. I mean, you lost me at kill us.
Yeah, it's a Game of Death remix. I get that. For me,
Yeah.
I love Damian Wayne. I love him unabashedly and without any irony. I love him. And seeing him taken to task by his super cranky but like meditative, hot, McSteamy granddad is mildly entertaining from a characterization standpoint. And if I had read about this on a wiki, I'd be like, "Oh wow, this is cool." But to spend my actual money on it for an actual book, I don't know. Especially with this, as you noted, Game of Death remix that they're doing
Right.
On this album. I'm like, okay. It doesn't feel like this matters because let's say, in my mind, Robin wins the tournament and does all this, and so what has changed? What important has come of this? I don't know. And if
My
I
favorite
don't know,
is this whole thing
I
is
don't
the
care.
tournament can't start until everybody's died once. I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, it's kind of like, I'm not saying that this is this is an Eisner Award winning comic, but it's got something. I do love the art.
Damien,
I think the
who's
art's
great.
beautiful, and it's got Connor Hawke. One panel of
do
Connor
like
Hawke
Connor.
can fill me for a whole issue.
Wow, you're an easy target.
Yeah, I am. So let's talk Green Lantern #5.
Oh, now Green Lantern. Okay. Now again, I believe that the 20-page format is doing this a disservice because this is easily 40 pages worth of book.
Right.
And with Green Lantern #5, I believe that there's things happening. There's a really brilliant story happening with John Stewart, and there's that shocking reveal, like, oh, this is what really happened, and when it really hits them, and that was really heavy. I just didn't feel like a Teen Lantern attack on Korrigar was the way to go. But from a story standpoint, I mean, tell me that it happened. I don't need to see it. I don't believe we need to take up the page count for that. And I don't really believe that the instability caused by the absence of the Green Lanterns is being really clearly shown enough. Because if they're gone, if every cop disappeared tomorrow from the streets of America, it'd be a bigger deal. It'd be a bigger story. And I don't believe we're really addressing that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I agree. And one thing I think though is interesting is that they did it's the format, right?
Yeah.
They actually did this one as two stories, like a front story and a backup story. Mm-hmm. Whereas the past couple of issues, it had two stories, but they wove in and out from each other, right? I really like it better when they weave in and out. I have to say,
If they've got the page count, sure.
I didn't like the way the stories were compartmentalized, because in the past they haven't been compartmentalized in that way.
Interesting.
And I never thought, and it's just something that I never really put a lot of thought into, but it was something that I really noticed. I think that I do think the story, in terms of what it says about Korgar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Sinestro, I actually did think that was interesting. It was a very interesting take on the Yellow Lanterns, which, I'm kind of really hot and cold on. You
Okay.
know, I liked it. I liked it. The thing about the Green Lantern book, quite frankly, is that Thorne is doing an amazing job of writing.
True.
He's doing an amazing job of. We're 5 issues in, and I feel like I'm 50 issues in, right? Like he
That's
puts
true.
a lot of story in there,
True.
and so even a lackluster couple of pages is still head and shoulders above most other books.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. What he's doing on this book far, far, far surpasses anything that you'll see from. Oh, I don't know what else came out this week. Anything that you'll see from. Scroll real quickly, like Pennyworth #1, yeah, or like say for instance, then literally Defenders #1, or that terrible America Chavez book. This was a book that really stands up, and even when
Right.
it's not as good as it could be, it's still drastically better than most of the other stuff you're gonna find.
Yeah, yeah. So this is definitely in the buy pile.
Yeah, sure, sure. Even with its
It's just
caveats.
yeah. I mean, I feel like when I talk about this book, I'm searching for something bad to say, and I'm spending more time searching for bad things to say than I am spending time reading the book, and I'm still not finding anything bad to say. I mean, it's just that good, you
That's
know.
pretty good. Yeah.
Um, let's talk about another DC slash Milestone book,
I'm waiting for it. Come
Hard,
on now.
Hardware Season 1, Issue Number 1.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
This is what Milestone should be.
Yes.
I mean, I love the way it has some very some. It's got this embedded political commentary.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really love is how they weren't afraid to give us to give us Alva's perspective,
True.
right? And they actually gave us this perspective of Alva that actually makes Hardware look like a schmuck.
If you look at it from that way, yes, that's
If
true.
you look at it from his perspective. Now, but once you introduce Curtis Metcalf's perspective, like a lot of Alva's statements kind of fall apart, right?
True.
But what it is it's like it actually embraces what you said earlier about how you measure your heroes by the villains.
Mm-hmm.
And what they've done is they've created a villain that's compelling and understandable.
Yeah.
And I mean to the reader. And so yeah, I mean, and then I also like that this is starting off with everybody's coming after Hardware. We didn't spend time building
Nope.
up to that moment. We just we basically jumped into the best part of the story.
Yeah. There's something. Screenwriting Twitter was all about this week. They were like, arrive late, leave early. Where it's like you don't bother with all the build up, you don't bother with all the origin. Just jump into what's going on. And I mean, they jumped into this with the wolves at the door for Hardware, and it was really, it gave us an immediacy, an urgency, a ticking clock. And I was like, okay, I'm feeling it. Go. All right, keep going. And with the new take of tying Alva's organization more directly into the Big Bang, which I don't believe, if memory serves, was so closely stated in the original
Right.
Milestone. I believe that's a brilliant way to bring the universe a sense of cohesiveness, and that everything kind of works and affects each other, and really gives Hardware, a legitimate thing. Like he'll become a folk hero in a lot of ways, in the way that, like, for instance, Christopher Dorner is in Los Angeles. This cop that went nuts and went after a bunch of cops, and people are like, oh yeah, that's terrible. I mean. I guess. I mean, but this, you can still find Christopher Dorner shirts on average people in Los Angeles, grandmamas.
Yep.
So it speaks for that Alva's relatability as the billionaire class is like, no, I am being wronged. Yes, I signed you to this rapacious, messed up deal that totally exploited your work, but you signed it. Don't blame me for being a businessman. And
Or my favorite is,
yeah,
think of how much you were able to accomplish because of my help,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
You
yeah.
know, I have to say, I thought it was, I'm like, you know, I mean, here's the funny thing, when when I look at the original Milestone, Hardware was not my favorite book, right? I didn't not like him, but he just didn't resonate with me as much as Shadow Cabinet did, right? But this Hardware resonates.
Yeah.
This Hardware really resonates much more, and that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Because
But
I was into Blood Syndicate because I was in LA at the height of the gang era, so Blood Syndicate was speaking to where I freaking lived. But
right,
you know, this Hardware being both more politically aware than the previous, because the previous was, you know, kind of super bougie or whatever. But being more politically aware, being more connected, and having a legitimate a legitimate grievance against the billionaire class is something we can all see and relate to right now, with Jeff Bezos going into space and Elon Musk being a, you know, corrupt emerald billionaire or whatever. That, you know, this really resonates with where we are and what we're doing. And I
right.
really applaud, first of all, the script from Brandon Thomas, which is just absolutely, I'm in love with it. And second of all, we brought in Dennis Cowan and Bill Sienkiewicz on the freaking art. Oh my
Yeah.
God. To meld the old and the new so deliciously. It's
Yep.
beautiful. It's beautiful.
Yep. I mean, I love this book.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. Total buy. Total
So,
buy all day.
yep. Well, let's move on to some other total buys. I actually thought that there's some interesting stuff going on the independent side this week,
All right.
and you know, I'm going to give a quick honorable mention to Seven Secrets from last week because we
So
missed last
good.
week.
So
Yes,
sneaky.
you
So
know,
good.
you know, I've come to love that book.
Yeah, you did.
But I want to jump to my favorite book of the week,
Go on.
hands down. Eve, #4.
Oh crap! Did I miss Eve #4? That was this week.
Yep,
I didn't see that in the Boom reviews. What?
Eve #4.
Okay, I feel bad now because like I get the
Woo!
Boom reviews.
This was like,
Oh man,
you know what was great about this?
what's
This
that?
is the one where there was no recap. Things got even more complicated than they were before, and I had no problem following it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is a really, really. I mean, this is a great book. So I can
I
totally
mean,
see that.
Victor
And
Laval
you've
is
said that
just
each
like,
issue's gotten better than the previous one.
yes. And what he's able to do is he's able to bring out in the conversation between Eve and her clone. So now we know, spoiler alert,
I
you
know.
know,
Wow, spoiler.
is that Eve is the sixth clone, and so she's running into the fifth clone of her,
I'm sorry. Did you
and
say she's Eve 6?
yeah,
You do get the joke there, right?
yup,
Oh no. Oh no. That's beautiful.
yep. And so she encounters her older clone, and that's the one who saved her at the end of the last one. And I'm only telling you what happens in the first 3 pages. I
Man.
mean, that's the thing. And it turns out that like all the clones have been all sent out to do the same journey, and all of them have had to fight it out with Wexler, and Eve 6 and her clone, her older clone, are the last 2 left.
There's a lot to like about that. There's a lot of fun there. Wow.
And it's great because the other thing is like, so what it is they use her clone to kind of bring Eve up to speed on everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the clone the clone has been doing things to stave off puberty. She's like on an 800 calorie a day diet because once she hits puberty, she's going to turn into one of those zombified monsters.
Oh no. Oh, okay, that's bad.
Yeah. So and it talks about like you know, like we get a little more insight to what Wexler is, and we find out that some of the flashbacks that we thought were contemporaneous were not.
Okay.
You know.
I'm gonna have to speak with the Boom publicist because they sent me all kind of review copies. I did not get this one.
Well, they robbed you.
They did me dirty. We gonna
Yep.
have a talk.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to say bad things about Boom Books now for what they did to you.
No, let's not go that far. It'll be a
And
private admonishment.
and yet again, the art was beautiful.
Yeah.
I didn't feel. I mean, I actually thought that he had, you know, on most of the pages, a real economy of words.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which is something that you know I tend to harp on.
Yeah, you do.
But what was also nice about it's like we actually had a couple of pages that used like the old-fashioned nine panel format.
Mm-hmm. I can't
You
believe
know.
something that came up when I was a kid is now an old-fashioned one. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're old. Sorry.
Hey, aren't you older than I am?
Look. Age is nothing but a number, and mine is unlisted.
From Chicago, I think you better be careful with that line. But all right, go ahead.
So yeah, I mean, and they also actually have, I'm going to give this page an award for the most incredible, tender, black girl joy moment that I've seen in a comic.
Okay.
And it's just a splat. They gave a splash page to Eve's clone braiding Eve's hair.
Oh, that is nice. Okay, I respect.
I
that.
mean, it's tender. It's this moment when they are truly just girls.
Yeah.
They're not trying to save from the apocalypse. You know, and then the commentary is really funny because Eve's like, "Who taught you how to do hair?" And her clone is like, "You're gonna laugh, but it was Wexler. He's really good at it." You know, but again, there is like, it's like, you know, it captures like a platonic intimacy
Yeah.
that we don't see enough of. And there's this
True.
tendency to take intimate moments and charge them sexually.
Yeah.
And I like hit this page and I just kind of melted.
Okay,
I
that's
just
nice.
melted
I like
when I
that.
saw it.
Okay, well, I'm
You
gonna
know.
look for it. I'm gonna go run out and look for that one. Well, I mean, and
Yeah.
by run out, I mean digitally because I'm not leaving my house. But yeah,
I mean, this is worth spending your own money on.
absolutely.
So the next one that I want to hit is the last installment of this arc of Bitterroot number 15.
Okay, go ahead.
Loved it. I felt like David Walker did a really good job of bringing it all together.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this issue actually tied up all the threads, and what it also brought home to me is that he brought a simplicity to the writing, and the art also had the art was a little less messy than it is sometimes.
Okay.
You know, Sanford Green, I love his art, but he
But-
also uses he has a really heavy hand on the darks, right? And so sometimes it can be a little muddy for the reading, and but the art came together really well, and it all captured the simplicity of the story. Like if you were at all confused about what was going on before, you know everything in this one.
Okay.
This was a master class for at least to me, it was a master class in telling a story that wraps up an arc.
That's definitely some stories have to have endings. That's very valid.
You know, and it ends it in a way that's still open enough for us to go forward. We've made a new revelation as to like what this battle really is about. You know, we've answered the question of like, what do you do you transform do you transform the evil into, do you try to transform the evil racists into good, or do you destroy them? They've actually answered all of that. They've actually come up with an answer to it that answers it without changing what people do.
Okay.
You know,
That's
I mean,
not easy.
it kind of changes what they do, but it doesn't change, I mean, the philosophy around what they do.
Right, I get it.
Dramatically, right? It's just like he added precision, and that was really really nice to that was really cool.
We could all benefit from it.
A book that I want to ask you about, because I came in the middle of this one, Black Cotton #4.
Okay. Yeah, I was saddened by Black Cotton when I was reading it. If you've ever seen a film called White Man's Burden with Harry Belafonte and John Travolta,
Yep.
it posited the concept of flipping the sides, where black people are in a position of power to oppress white people. I always thought it was a false equivalency in a lot of ways because it's never really clear, and it's not clear here either. When? When did this happen? At what point
Right.
did this alteration of what we're considering history happen? And if so, then why is everybody dressed like this? So, because
Yep.
just flipping those two things and telling essentially the same story with black in place of white and white in place of black, excuse me, is not. It's a straw man thought experiment.
Right.
And while it is done here as well as it was in White Man's Burden, with the best possible means of and craft of approaching it, that doesn't mean that the story is good. That doesn't mean that the core elements of what's happening make sense or have a real even internal logic. It's just like, okay, flip these things and figure it out as you go. No, 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 no. The world building here is very shallow. The concepts here are very facile, and I felt that the struggle here was very contrived because the way
So
that's
basically, you're
presented
saying
out,
the struggle definitely was not real.
it was the struggle was not real. Exactly that. Oh wow. Okay. See, this is why you got a doctorate. So
I mean, that was kind of my take on it. When I read it, I'm like, oh, this is White Man's Burden. Oh, this is really not that interesting. I actually would have rather have seen this actually be, a white perspective on what's happening to black people.
yeah.
I actually think that could have been just as interesting. Now, I do think that there are some things that are interesting about this. Is that they are capturing some of the subtleties of what happens with this type. When you have this kind of racial divide. It's a black and white comic. So race does not. It's interesting because it
So you
kind
don't see
of
color?
you don't. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like there are moments where it's like, oh wait, oh yeah, that character's white. Oh, yeah, that character's black, right? And I don't know how intentional that was. I feel like with this book, it's like mildly intriguing with a whole bunch of question marks.
Yeah, for me the question marks are overwhelming. I can't buy into it, as it were. Um,
Yeah.
and and the cotton, if we're going to talk about it, seems faded to me because I didn't enjoy White Man's Burden. I don't enjoy this concept. I don't enjoy the facile argument that it's trying to make that racism is wrong because look what happens if we do it too. That's a philosophy 101 argument you'd get a D on your paper for. That's not a
Right.
that's not a real thing. So yeah, I just for the talent involved and for the ability here, I just believe there's a deeper wave than this, a deeper
Right.
world than this tugging at their hand, and they're not seeing it. They're not being a part of it.
I feel you on that. I completely feel you. And I'm like you. I'm not sure how you. Honestly, I'm not sure how you would fix it.
Well, if you must ask, as we've got 3 minutes left, you fix it by looking at what changed, as in the What If series that Marvel puts forth. It says, there, that's the moment. That's the
Right.
moment that this world changed. Show me that moment and show me then the natural developments from it. Because if you then get Shumagorath coming out of a portal instead of the Red Skull, sending a bomb to the east coast of the United States, okay, I see that's an escalation. Okay,
Right.
so are we going to say that instead of what happened, that the first people who came out of the Caucasus Mountains were greeted with swords instead of friendship? Then yeah, okay, let's dig into that and see how that changed things. I don't know, and I don't believe honestly the creators of this book know either.
Right. I'm with you on that. So we have a few seconds left. What did you think of Ordinary Gods #2, And Six Sidekicks number 3.
I'll focus more on Six Sidekicks because I loved it. Six Sidekicks is amazing, and they actually figured out a way to use violence as characterization, which is tough. And
Yes.
introducing this character that she's so. I was like, imagine if Kimmy Schmidt had like a ultra violence background and none of the actual maybe connections to the Ku Klux Klan. That's what I got out of this character, and I loved it. I was so entertained because there were so many evil one-liner. Even Trigger Keaton has a one-liner that he's this racist, misogynist, awful person, but he has this one-liner that makes you go, you know. That very early in the book while he was on the set, it was gasp inducing and it was
Right.
totally in character and it was wrong in every way and it was totally enjoyable nonetheless. So yeah, I really think this Trigger Keaton book is taking off. I really was not thinking I was going to be able to get on board for the art style, but I was. I find it super enjoying. Ordinary Gods I have less of a thing about because with that last page reveal, I was like, if you're going to put real history into these things, make it for a reason that stands up other than, oh no, I just want to tie this in this way. I don't really
Right.
feel the importance of why that specific piece of history was brought into it and why this is specifically applying this way with these kid gloves they're putting on people. So I don't know. I wasn't really feeling Ordinary Gods.
I wasn't a fan of that. I mean, it's an interesting concept. I won't lie. I think the concept behind this is interesting.
Yes, it's wicked and divine.
But true. But I'm waiting for them to up their game on the execution.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm giving. I by no means have given up. I'm just like, okay, you need to come correct.
That bandwagon
my
you're on
take.
is looking pretty empty, pal. Just gonna say.
Yeah.
This has been Comic Books This Week with Dr. Stanford Carpenter and myself, Hannibal Taboo. Any last thoughts before we sign off for a week, and then we'll toss this up on YouTube.
Okay. Well, I have no last thoughts.
All right.
Yeah.
That's pithy. All right, then. Thank you so much for joining us. Please check out for Dr. Stanford Carpenter at SW Carpenter on Twitter. I'm at Hannibal Taboo, and we will see you next time.
Have a good one.
All right, be safe.